June 1st, 2024. We are online in the morning. I don't know, have we ever been online in the morning? This might be the first time we actually get up early enough to commit to doing a podcast because I'm away for a few days and we couldn't get on the normal days. And it is the NBA Finals, even though it's still 5 days away, 5 days of rest. Yeah, it's a bit interesting how you're just getting some extra rest because the conference finals were really not as exciting as we had hoped, right?
I think it's interesting that you think any of our listeners are that invested in our personal lives that they're like, no, it's totally fine, guys. I'm glad that you're still able to record. This is great. You've got to know our analytics say it's all about viewership in the early part of the
Dude,
video. This is
stick
not
with the
not what we
stick with
want to
the
say.
theme here. We've got a million people watching right now. Get back on
Oh,
topic.
my bad. Oh, I forgot that I was delusional for a second there. Yeah, look, clearly we can make that joke because we had a gentleman's sweep and a sweep, respectively, in the conference finals. I had people in my life kind of asking, well, what do you think the Wolves are going to do? And, I actually did expect them to maybe win game five and then Dallas takes it in game six. And then obviously they just get blown out. And probably indicative of the issues with the Wolves across the board. It's not often that you talk about a playoff team that makes the conference finals and you say, um, you've got to win at home. Like that's their goal moving forward. They had a record of I believe 3-5 at home, and if they had a better record, the Wolves are in the final. I believe I would say quite confidently there. So interesting on that front. I think I've already talked about my dislike of Cat and how that's clearly the piece that they've got to try to move off of.
Is Cat getting traded? I can't see them moving him. Even though they could or should move him, I can't see them moving him. It's like let's run this back and let's be disappointed next season that maybe we still also don't get to the finals again. I don't know, man. It just that's my vibe.
Yeah, I think it's such a large contract that it's obviously restricting a lot of their cap movements. And with this new CBA, it'll be interesting to see how the first offseason goes because I actually don't know if we'll have a lot of action in the offseason too, because the mid-season trade deadline was indicative of the fact that it's a lot more restrictive now to move players, move contracts, move picks. So moving someone like Cat, you then have to go straight to the extremes, and you're like, oh well, will it go to Brooklyn and they take Mikal Bridges back? But I don't know why Brooklyn would want Cat. Do they take Trae Young from Atlanta? But again, I don't. And that's probably the big theme that comes out of this. You kind of know what you're getting with Cat. He is, 26, 28 range. And he consistently has high upside and low downside. And in the playoffs, it seems to be that you get one good Cat game and 2 to 3 bad Cat games. And for someone who's taking up almost 50 million on your cap per year, that's not a great position for your team to be stuck in.
I think Cat unfortunately, I guess remains with the label that he doesn't show up in clutch. I think this was evident before Ant Edwards became the number one option in Minnesota, and it was all about Cat, and they couldn't get out of the first round, and they were sort of somewhat competitive, they were on the up, but at Cat as the number one option, that was clear that he wasn't really built that way. And then we get to the conference finals here, he has one good showing, I guess, one reasonable showing, and sort of three shocking games. So I don't know. I think definitely there's definitely a motivation that to probably shop him, but I don't think they're going to get anything in return for him that's worth letting him go. And to run it back
Mm.
and win another 50 games or so, probably not a bad thing. But at this point, I don't know. Maybe they need to. I don't know. Maybe Jaden McDaniels is that option that that will continue to develop, that will then push Cat down that food chain in Minnesota. That might be a good thing for the T-Wolves. Yeah, that's a potential crystal ball situation, but yeah,
That's our off-season content. Let's park this actually because that's our off-season content. We've got the NBA Finals. We have the fifth seed Dallas Mavericks playing the number one Boston Celtics. Unsurprising that the Boston Celtics made it there, but I feel like if you ask people at the start of the season who's making the NBA Finals, Dallas was not on the tip of everybody's tongue. And Dallas have done it consistently in 6 games or less, and so have the Celtics. Actually, they haven't dropped 2 games yet. But I do feel like if Boston were to win the NBA Finals, they're not going to get through Dallas as easily as they have the Eastern Conference foes. But is this Luka's time? Right, we've talked about this, and we're now down to the final two. It's Tatum versus Luka, or Tatum and Kyrie versus Luka and Brown, and we've got that spicy Kyrie slash Porzingis angle. Is Porzingis healthy? I mean, it probably seems like he is. There's a lot of big questions that go into this, and so instead of doing a straight out prediction now, instead of just hedging it, what topic do you want to talk about first? Do you want to go straight to health? Because obviously Derek Lively has potentially some concussion issues because he took another knock to the head in back-to-back games of his playing, but a week off is potentially generous. Porzingis with the calf issue, is he ready to go? And that would be the health topic, or is it straight to the superstars?
Look, I don't know about Derek Lively. I know he got the knock to the head in that game, but he remained in the game. So I don't think that it's going to be a significant issue, especially with 5 days of rest, give or take, for him to be back on the floor. Plus, he's a young fella in that sort of sense. I think the biggest injury question mark is Porzingis, 100%. And, it's everything's tracking towards that he will come back, but will he be effective? Again, no shock horror here. Game two, he limps off the court again, and he's got sore legs again, and he's done for the rest of the series. So, obviously Boston fans are hoping that's not the case, but that's exactly sort of what the Mavs dealt with when they had him, and sort of every other team that sort of had him in that sense has dealt with that sort of at some point or another. So. Yeah, look, no one knows sort of how he's going to shake out. He probably knows himself only how he feels really, and he's crossing his fingers himself probably that he doesn't have an awkward landing or bump knees or something along those lines in that sense. So, yeah, but look, I guess on the good news there, I guess all the other key players right now are healthy. There will be some level of asterisks you would feel here that the Celtics do not want that if somehow one of the Mavs players did get injured, especially let's say Luka and Luka is not 100% either. Okay, so there's probably some level of reality there that he has been playing with sort of I think it's what, sore knee and ankle as well. I think opposite knee and ankle or something along those lines. Or Kyrie sort of goes down with something. Because remember, Kyrie has had his injury sort of concerns over the years. He's had a good year this year, but he has had injury concerns throughout his career as well at points. So it's it would be a really unfortunate asterisk if Boston was to then win a title and go, well, we didn't have Jimmy Butler. Yeah, we had the Knicks all go down, and then Tyrese Halliburton also went down, and it was just a very fortunate run. Everyone fell down, and we just got to finish line. Steve Bradbury, right? Is that what? That's the name that we've been talking about for a few months now.
Yeah, look, maybe we're about to witness another fantasy finals where the team that was leading the entire season ends up falling apart at the end. I think we're in agreement. That feels like it's a lot more of a reality on the table than the other way. And the asterisk is great because obviously I don't know if you've seen this float around, but Denver's championship run last season, which was a little sketchy because they played pretty low seeds and end up going against Miami. In the last round, which is the 8th seed, and obviously Jimmy Butler being a little bit hobbled by that point, and then being unable to go back to back. Now Denver's kind of copped that, and their championship has a little bit of an asterisk on it, which we always can find an asterisk on championships. But for Boston, you're right. If Dallas for any reason is not full strength, they didn't play anyone at full strength. Like their entire path to the Eastern Conference, not finals, but the finals itself. Tyrese isn't there. Donovan's not there. Butler's not there. And that's not even including the auxiliary players around that. So it is pretty crazy to think that Bradbury, for those that aren't aware, it's the ice skater who was in last place and then
Google it. I just realized I talked about the
Google
Knicks. It was the Pacers that took out the Knicks. They obviously all went down with injury. It was everyone fell over in the East here, and the team that won 60 teams just just skated their way through. Is that what we're saying? That's and I love the graphics. I think on social media has tried to illustrate that. But I think there's some merit in that sort of reality that the Mavs have been tested. Yeah, they've been tested. They've
Hmm.
played three out of the top four teams in the West getting to the finals this year, and they've shown their worth. Yeah, they've arrived here at the finals. Have the Celtics been tested? Probably not. They've faced a few games where they've, had hot shooting on the other team, or they play poorly themselves and they've righted the ship in that sort of sense. But have they truly been pushing the seven-game series? They have not right now. And if they are, that there's some level of if there. If they are here, how will they respond? Because we talked about Cat maybe not displaying that clutch as a gene in that sense. Does Tatum have that or not either? And if he doesn't, then who does? Yeah, is it Jaylen Brown? I don't know. Like, are we all talking about Jaylen Brown in 2 weeks' time that he's now a Finals
Is he the
MVP?
Finals MVP?
Mm, mm.
I obviously that's a talking point in itself. I guess when you talk about being tested, when we track back here a little bit, Dallas does go up against the Clippers, and Kawhi is not at full strength. And the Clippers are always an interesting matchup because they had three superstars that can go off against them. And obviously Harden had a game that was quite competitive. So did Paul George. So that's an adaptation in itself. Then they play the young OKC team, with Shea obviously going toe to toe with Luka, and on 3-point shooting being a really big focus of their unit. And then Minnesota. I know that Minnesota basically got gentleman's sweep and they lost the last game by a large margin. The first three games were one possession games with some calls that you could make a case and say if it goes the other way, something different happens. They were a close series, very physical series, interior wise as well. So Dallas has really had to adapt to a variety of things. And you look at their lineup, Gafford and Lively clearly are a front court that's quite formidable. And so going up against Boston, that'll be an interesting matchup for Boston. They've got Kyrie and Luka who run at the guards position. But then you've got Derrick Jones Jr., who out of nowhere is like shooting 50% from three, right? And same for PJ Washington, the same for Josh Green. Like Dallas looks really well constructed and they have strengths in pretty much every area. Boston's strength is they will take 40 to 53s in a game and they will hit enough of them that they'll probably beat you, but they can also lock you down on defense. Those two things matching up will be interesting because can Drew and Derek White contain Luka and Kyrie? Well, no one's contained Luka at this point, and when Kyrie's cooking, no one contains him either. So is that going to actually cancel out? You look at the big situation. If Kristaps isn't ready to go, then it's Xavier Tillman and it's Al Horford. Well, I feel like the front court advantage goes straight to Dallas on that one. And then if we're really just going to come down to who can shoot better threes, then at this point, I feel a lot more confident about Dallas's threes because the thing with Dallas, opposed to Boston, Boston's two main ball handlers aren't good 3-point shooters. So it's only on the kick out or the driving kick out that they're going to end up with a 3-pointer. Whereas Dallas, if you don't want to double Luka, he'll hit the three against you. And if you do double Luka, then he gives an easier three to someone else. So I'm liking Dallas. I'm getting a Luka jersey. I reckon I'm ready to go.
So what's your pick here? What's your pick here? I feel like you're arriving at your Dallas pick here. Get that 77 jersey on. How many games, man, if that's the way you're going?
I'm almost like thinking, do I get a wolf tattoo? Do I really go in, like all in for this Luka bandwagon? I think it'll be 6 games. I think when you reference the lack of testing that Boston's had, the only test that they had, funnily enough, was Indiana without Tyrese. Indiana shot incredibly well against them and played a really high tempo, right? And Boston had to match that, and Boston had to do a bit of lockdown D to get themselves back in the game. But that was their biggest test. I don't know what Boston is going to pose towards Luka and the Mavs that requires them to adapt, right? I think the series is going to go to Dallas's tempo, which that's Boston being reactive. And this Kristaps X factor, which I know he's legitimately an X factor and really fascinating. But you're right, he could have a really good game one. Dallas loses, and then he's got calf soreness and he's out for game two. And then it's a 6-game series instead of a 7-game series because the teams are reset. I'm going Dallas in 6. Dallas
Dallas
in 6.
in 6. You talked about a wolf tattoo. Why a wolf tattoo? You talking about like a horse
Luca's got
tattoo?
a wolf tattoo.
Oh, wolf
Luca's got
tattoo.
a wolf tattoo right there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why not just the Mavs logo, man? That would have made more sense. I'm like, why wolf tattoo? Are you going for the T-Wolves, are you? And like, it's look, I I actually thought about this since the series closed out, and I knew we were gonna come online a couple days earlier than usual. And I was like, which way am I gonna go here, man? So let me illustrate you a scenario here. Okay, let me illustrate you the thought process I arrived at here. When the Celtics made the finals against the Warriors, I actually picked the Celtics. I picked Marcus Smart to win, um, obviously NBA Finals MVP, and he didn't have a very good showing. He's gone now, out of Boston. And I actually put some money down. I remember we did that recording, and I
Oh,
went and put some money down. His odds were quite long. I was like, why not? And clearly that didn't pay out, yeah, but that's okay. But I have gone for the Celtics in that sense in the past before when they've arrived at this stage. They've been, conference finalists, what, 6 out of 8 years now. And as much as they, sort of haven't been huge fans of them, especially after that pick didn't really pan out. You can't argue the fact that they continue to win games. Yeah, they continue to
hmm.
win games. They continue to upgrade their roster. And, Marcus Smart is gone. Derek White is in. Drew Holiday, an NBA champion, joined the roster. Porzingis is an X factor if we're going to be optimistic in a very positive way in that sort of sense. And I think Jaylen Brown is coming into his own. Jaylen Brown is coming into his own, and Tatum is still Tatum, man. He's like a all NBA player, regardless, I guess, if he doesn't really have the clutch gene in him in that sort of sense. And then I guess on the other hand here, I'm like, well, you know what? Let's be clear. I've talked about Luca being the GOAT. And here he is, right? Here he is. And, you might want to expound this. We can expound this a little bit more as well. But here he is at the NBA Finals. We talked about record becomes important now. This is a legacy-defining series for Luka Doncic. Everyone else, it really, whatever. Yeah, it's a great achievement. It'll be the pinnacle of the career, or to get one under the belt of Kyrie to get his second. But for Luka, this is a legacy-defining series here, and for him to remain on a sort of I guess the inside track to be in the GOAT conversation, he needs a W. Yeah, that's as far as I'm concerned, that's what it is. Okay, and obviously last week I think we talked about quality and quantity and perfection, and that's sort of what's going to be coming into play here. And I guess I'm sort of like I said, man, I sort of tossed and turned. I don't know which way to go here. I was like, and I'm going to say, even though I would love Luka to win it, okay, and I probably would feel like I'll probably like the Mavs to win it. Yeah, it's not a. I think there's more positive storylines there. Yeah, Kyrie gets a second. It'd be fun to see. We're already seeing. I don't know about you on social media, but all the well now it wasn't like Kyrie needed LeBron. It was LeBron needed Kyrie. It's so funny the stuff that fucking circulates on social media. It's crazy stuff, right? But that's just funny already. Where that it's already started to circulate now. As soon as they sort of closed out that series, bang, it was hit the publish button for these people. Um, but I'm saying that the Celtics are gonna win now. This is their year. Banner 18. All right, I'm going Celtics here. So we can have a lively debate over the next week or two. That we're gonna go different picks. I'm gonna say maybe I arrived too early a few years ago when they came up across against the Warriors. Three-time Warriors, yeah, three-time champion Warriors at that point. Even though they were sort of a bounce back season with Wiggins in that lineup, years ago now. And I'm saying that the key is shutting down Kyrie. Let Luka cook, yeah. But if he's got no one to cook with, well, hell, if he can score 45 a game for this series, then maybe they still remain in a chance. And they have the right personnel to shut down Kyrie with two all defensive second team players, guards, yeah, not one this time, yeah, two, okay, that are sort of much more ready for this assignment. And I think my pick, and I've made some interesting picks maybe this postseason, um, you know, in these playoffs, sorry, that have sort of gone wayward because of injuries. And maybe Chris Stapps is going to throw my pick out the window by game two. We saw Cavs, man. Okay, and I'm gonna say then the next narrative will then become, well, maybe Luka can't be the GOAT. Maybe now he now needs to have volume and quantity to then be in that conversation one day. Um, and that's not necessarily the narrative I want for him, but I'm saying the Celtics here will get this job done in seven. I'm going to go seven. I'm going to go seven here.
Okay.
Why not? Why not? I've gone seven all the way around here. Seven, all right? Celtics in
I
seven.
think I want to counter the let Luca cook philosophy because the issue of letting Luca cook is his playmaking ability is where it hurts you. So what you're kind of suggesting is either doubling Kyrie deliberately or just paying single coverage and relying on your defenders and letting Luca cook. As a team, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm really looking forward to game one to see what they actually do defensively against Dallas because the power of Luca is the step back three potential is incredibly real, or the step back jumper stuff is incredibly real. So he'll beat you off the dribble and he might just pull that out. But if he beats you off the dribble, the lob threat becomes a reality, but the finishing around the rim becomes a reality. Luca's very complete in that essence, right? And so what you're suggesting is that Luca has 40 and 10 assists, and the 10 assists go to Gafford and Lively, and that's it. And the 3-point shooting gets taken away, which probably is the strategy that Celtics need to take. Don't let Kyrie cook. Don't let Derek Jones and PJ Washington get going, and you might be okay defensively. I I think Luca's got it. I think Luca's got the package here. I think Luca has the ability to do it. And the issue will be Tatum and Brown will get suckered in to trading threes of Luca, right? I saw it a little bit in the OKC series, but SGA can do it, right? When the
I think
game's getting out of hand and
I
someone
think
hits a three,
sucked.
SGA comes back and hits it.
I think the Mavs would be happy if they got sucked in to that sort of strategy. But the
Mm.
the Celtics are deep, six-man deep, going all the way to Al Horford, who I think last series made like seven threes in one of those games, and they obviously led the league in three-point shooting, number one offense, and they just have multiple options. Yeah, we're talking about, finals MVP here. Hell, pick anyone but Tatum. Yeah, that's the potential reality here because again, they're a deep team and that's why they got to 64 wins this year. I think it would be Joe Mazzulla's job here if he allowed them to trade that sort of game plan with Dallas.
I just want to get in here a little bit. Regular season records are really deceptive. Okay. The reason why I'm saying that is because they did win 64 games this season. Yeah.
Hmm.
We're in agreement.
Shit.
They play more games against the Eastern Conference, which we kind of just saw is not the stronger conference. So there are, just based off scheduling, easier wins, right? When you think about the worst teams in the East, Washington, Detroit, right? Even Brooklyn to a degree. I know that they were a little bit more competitive, but that the bottom is the bottom when it comes to that. And when they get to play those teams 4 or 5 times, that's a lot easier to rack up wins than going up against the Western teams that are at the bottom, right? And I'm not saying that San Antonio is substantially better, but they were spicy. They took a game off the defending champs at the end of the season when they needed it. They clearly were a little bit more competitive. Houston didn't even make the playoffs, and they were quite spicy all season. Their record is inflated, right? And Dallas wasn't exactly that much further off. I'm trying to pull it up, but it's why we need a stat man. Dallas finished at 50 and 32 in a Western Conference that they just proved they are the best team in the Western Conference. I think the record, yes, it got them there, and it's going to secure them home court advantage. But Dallas has now proven as well they don't care. The home court advantage thing seems to be disappearing a little bit too. Maybe it's because of threes. Maybe it's because I don't know the home court isn't loud enough anymore. I don't know, but Dallas will win a game at Boston. They have to, obviously, for my prediction to come true. But they'll win a game at Boston. I don't think that Boston loves dropping a game at home too.
Look, I think you talked about Luka getting 40 and 10 assists. And if you're going to throw those lobs as assists there, that's another 20 points there. So that's 60 points now on the board. Okay, if you keep Kyrie to a manageable 20, that's only 80 points. See, that's the key. And then add some other sort of players getting a few buckets here and there. Let's say they get up to 100. Okay, I think if you're going against the Celtics, as much as scoring has been suppressed in the playoffs at the moment, which makes sense, yeah, because defense cranks up and you play the same opponent up to 7 times in a row in that sort of sense, that they're going to need to find more offense. And that's why they can't let Kyrie get 30. Yeah, they can't let Kyrie get 36 and Luka get 36 like the T-Wolves let happen in Game 5 here. As much as the T-Wolves is the number one defense, okay, that was not the game plan that was going to translate into a W. And there was probably a little bit, and maybe this is probably going to give you some nightmares, but there's probably a little bit of deja vu when Luka was cooking that first quarter like he did against the Suns, wasn't it? He just came out and just sort of couldn't miss, and he has that talent. No one's arguing that.